Hello, everybody. My name is Christiaan Beek. I'm the lead scientist and senior principal engineer for McAfee's enterprise ATR team. And with my team, we're hunting and searching and leading innovation into the threat landscape and doing research about all the threats that are hitting our customers.
My
Max,
name
over to
is,
you.
yeah, thank you. My name is Max Kersten. I'm part of Christian's team. I'm a malware analyst, and I perform part of the research together with my colleagues that we publish. So, Chris, you wrote about several of the predictions that we have for the upcoming year, and I want to ask you some questions about those. So first off, the potential impacts and implications of the nation states and their offensive operations. Um, how do you view that?
So on the prediction is about like, look, we see the blurring of cyber attacks, right? We're all about like into these investigations around, hey, what do we observe, right? What kind of indicators or what kind of activity do we notice? But the moment that nation states, for example, are recruiting cyber criminals, are using or abusing their toolkits, the line's getting blurred, right? You think you're dealing with a cybercrime kind of thing, like maybe a trick bot or maybe some other known remote access Trojan, which normally is classified in the industry like, oh yeah, cybercrime activity. But actually, it could be possible, like with what we see a lot happening at these days, that they're abusing those common cybercrime tools as a first step in their nation state attack. So yeah, those blurring lines also makes it different. It's actually to your investigations. It's no longer about like, I would say the whole. You have to investigate, of course, the whole chain, but also like what is the capability of the malware and what are some of the next steps we can expect when somebody has this capability in the malware. So that was my prediction about like, hey, we already see an increase here, and yeah, we definitely predict for next year that this will increase more.
And do you see any? I mean, you say the line is blurring, but do you see any techniques and tactics that are predominantly used by these nation-state actors, or do you reckon that the line will continue to blur as is?
Well, I would say if you would go back a few years, you would see that nation states are really into like they have their specific backdoors, right? That the unique backdoors which they create. We now see like far more that they are going into the tools and toys that cyber criminals like in a ransomware campaign are using. Like on GitHub, of course, you can find a plethora of tools and scripts. And it makes it difficult. Like honestly, if you do like a forensic investigation or you have like a alert in your EDR system, for example, what is happening here, right? It's blurring to say like, hey, what is the next step? Like if you find, for example, a Mimikatz tool which is dumping the credentials from memory, okay, is it now a nation state we're dealing with, or is this like a cybercrime group that's trying to break into my network and actually infiltrate and actually send around the ransomware, right? So using more of those common tools, but also we have several cases where we know from nation states that they recruit hacker groups using their tools and tactics. Yeah, that makes it more difficult to actually anticipate on what is next.
And in terms of these third parties that are recruited, whether they know or not is unknown in some cases, but the scale of them is used. However, so the threat of the nation states themselves, armed with, so to say, the additional capabilities that they hire, um, they pose a real threat to companies and nations alike. Is there a way that governments can hold them accountable for this, or how do you view that?
Well, what you see, of course, a perfect example is the United States, where they actually put in sanctions against certain individuals, or I think this week they put up some sanctions against some companies that were selling 0 days. But the same happens for certain individuals or companies like front companies, where we know that, hey, these have been actually like a front end company for a nation state, and where actually people are working in the office as a kind of internet company with brackets, right? And actually they're hacking around and they shift that information directly to the intelligence officer that's giving them the orders. So that's one thing we see. So the sanctions is one thing, and also I would say sharing, right? It's like if we do like if the US does sanctions, why not do it globally with other parties as well? So it makes it far more effective.
Yeah, otherwise it's only one country or a smaller group of countries that imposes a limit or puts pressure on somebody. Doesn't have as much of an effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But talking about the aside from the accountability, there's also obviously the prevention that both companies and countries alike can do. Do you have any tips or improvements that people could use?
Well, first of all, this is not something new, right? Like, with all respect, espionage, what we're talking about, like gathering intelligence about your opponents or about different countries, their political agenda, it has been old for ages, right? And just, I would say, the electronics and the digital world we live in makes it far more different. Like traditionally, you would intercept signals, but nowadays it's all about like internet traffic. It's far easier to actually install a piece of malware that it's spying on you on a computer or a phone. It got far more easy, right? So I think it's something that has always been there, and for companies that have information that is really valuable to certain nation states, like it's a no-brainer for if you're manufacturing like an airplane or like a jet engine. Yeah, certain nation states would be very interested in your technology. So make sure that especially those parts of the network where that data is sitting, that it's secure, right? That it's really highly secure opposite the rest. And if you have like a lot of suppliers that can help you manufacture that jet engine, for example, make sure you also have checks in place. Like, hey, if they connect to my network, do I have checks in place that if somebody is breaching into that supply chain, can I detect it? So yeah, those would be my two major recommendations.
Yeah, I think that sums it up as well. The supply chain has been quite a hot topic for the last year or so. I mean, it was important before then as well, but it's more in the spotlight nowadays. So I think the inclusion in your explanation there is really valuable as well. And furthermore, I would like to thank you for your time, and we take it to the next inside look.
All right, thank you, Max, for the interview, and thank you for watching this prediction.